in the whole world, you know, there's a million boys and girls who are young, gifted and black, and that's a fact. Young, gifted and black must begin to tell our young there's a world waiting for you. This quest has just begun. When you feel really low, yeah, there's a great truth you should know. When you're young, gifted and black, your soul's intact. Young, gifted and black. How I long to know the truth. There are times when I look back and I am haunted by my youth. Oh, but my joy of today is that we can all be proud to say, to be young, gifted and black is where it's at. Young, gifted and black must begin to tell our young there's a world waiting for you. This is a quest that's just begun. Oh, when you feel really low, yeah, there's a great truth you should know. When you're young, gifted and black, your soul's intact. Young, gifted and black. How I long to know the truth. There are times when I look back and I am haunted by my youth. Oh, and my joy of today is that we can all be proud to say, to be young, gifted and black is where it's at. Is where it's at. Is where it's at.
Birmingham's #1 for African arts, culture, and Afro edutainment. 98.7 New Style FM.
Get ready! Fashion Invasion, the biggest fashion event of the summer, is coming to the Legacy Centre of Excellence on Saturday the 10th and Sunday the 11th of July. 2 days full of the hottest brands and influencers. Day 1, a fashion extravaganza and over 50 fashion businesses, workshops and masterclasses. Live performances from the likes of Millions, DJ Day Day, Shaq 5 and hosted by T1 Official as well as Jordan Rian. Day 2, a live fashion show, 3-course meal with Adians dining, live performances and a marketplace. Saturday the 10th and 11th of July. Visit www.legacycoe.co.uk. And for more information, call 0845 05 27726. See you there.
Shipping home, ship with JLB Shipping and Logistics Limited. Have you heard of our Ship Now, Pay Later plan to Jamaica and about our special rates to Kingston, Montego Bay, the Caribbean? Ask about our door-to-door service. We can tell you your destination charges in Jamaica. No hidden charges or surprises. We ship weekly to Kingston, fortnightly to Montego Bay, the Caribbean, USA, and Canada. Your barrels, boxes, vehicles are in good hands. We are in Birmingham at Sam's Lane, B70 7EX for your sat-navs. Why not visit us at our Birmingham office and warehouse, where you have the convenience of packing your goods for shipping. Meanwhile, you are assured of your London collections on Tuesday and Wednesdays. Call us with your bookings and inquiries on 0121 525 5881 or 0121 661 6525 or on the mobile 0785 002 5582 and in London on 02 08 888 0344. JLB Shipping. We make shipping simple.
Hello, New Style Radio listeners. This is Tony Kelly. Tune in on Sunday, the 11th of April, 6 till 8 p.m. for an exclusive interview with Birmingham's Honorary Consul, Wade Lynn. He'll be talking about his near-death experience from COVID-19, including being in intensive care at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital for many weeks. He will tell us about the importance of taking the vaccine. Make sure you tune in. Indeed, it is a show not to be missed on New Style Radio 98.7 FM this Sunday, the 11th of April, 6 till 8 p.m.
Hi, I'm Anthony Peters, just reminding you to listen to New Style Radio between 1 and 3 p.m. for the Tuesday afternoon music session. Also on Wednesday nights for the Mixdown Zone, 10 till 12 GMT.
Anthony Peters.
Find out the latest gossips on your favorite artist with the finest R&B, reggae, and lovers. Keep your dial locked to 98.7 or listen live at www.newstyleradio.co.uk.
Broadcasting across the city on 98.7 FM. New Style Radio.
Hello, everybody, listeners and viewers. Welcome back to New Style Radio. We're your host for the mostest today. 6 till 8 is Tony Kelly from the community. Not well known in these parts of the world, but I've been asked to be host for this show, where I have Honorable Councillor Wade Lynn in the studio talking to us about his experiences. We're going to come on to COVID, because that's one of the main reasons for getting Wade into the studio. He has a story to tell about COVID. So if listeners want to ring at any point and have any questions they want to ask of Wade Lynn, the number is 0121 270 2559. Before the adverts came on, we were listening to Young Gibson and Black by Martin. That's what Wade said. So Wade, we're coming back to, he mentioned in the break
with myself, and that was the first time I went to Buckingham Palace. But I also did the Duke of Edinburgh Award Gold, and you had to do 50 miles of walking in what we call mountainous country. So I did my 50-mile walk in the Snowdonian region, and I can always remember you can only do 4 miles on a normal road, or but the rest of the 46 miles must be on mountainous country, and it taught me how to read an Ordnance Survey map of the contours that go up the mountain and down the mountain, and you had to do that over 4 nights, 5 days, and you'd have to climb possibly up to 2,000 meters. So I can remember camping out on the side of a mountain at night and with a sleeping bag.
And this was done with the company of others? It was a group of you?
Yes, there were 4 of us having to go together, and we all had to map route. We carried our own rucksack round, and you had an instructor that would oversee us at night time or in the day while we walked. But that was an experience that I enjoyed. And then obviously later on I climbed to base camp way back in 2017, Mount Everest, that is, Mount Everest, base camp. So my love of walking came about then, but my also passion for doing sort of community work. As part of Duke of Edinburgh, you had to do some community work. So I can remember working, volunteering at a place on Littlemore Hill Road, not far from Devonshire Road, at a home there. So I'd have to go there for 2-3 hours each week and do a little bit of helping out.
Wow. Before we go any further, Wade, I can see a book somewhere in there. Memoirs need to be told so the next generation coming up can realize how all the things you've done and are continuing to do within the community and further afield. And I like the walking bit, because I will add, as somebody who is into a lot of walking, health and well-being, we need to encourage our communities to do a lot more walking. None of us were born in a motor car, okay? Let's start from that point. So why we have to take the car, we're going 400 yards down the road, our feet were made for walking. So that's good to hear, and that's a lovely story to tell. Let's move on then, Wade. We've been speaking about the business and your community. You did touch on the mayor's deputy lieutenant's role. So in essence, I'm understanding then, if the lieutenant is not available for an engagement, you are next in line to do it.
That is correct. So
Right.
there's a number of us. I cover Birmingham area. We've got another gentleman called Martin Livermore who covers the Wolverhampton area.
Right.
We have other lieutenancy that covers Warwickshire and
see.
Coventry. So there's various lieutenancies. So how it works is that you could write a request to Buckingham Palace to have the Queen to come to your event. Now, if the Queen can't make it to your event, they will send a deputy lieutenant or the Lord Lieutenant.
I see. Right. I'm going to touch on something which I do know about you. This isn't in the questions I had intended to ask you, but since we're touching this area, let me then ask you about, you have a chaplain. I think Dr. Bishop Joe Aldred is your
That's
chaplain.
correct.
Tell us a bit why you have to have a chaplain chaperoning you.
Sorry. Because of the COVID, I should have took up another government appointment, which would have been the High Sheriff of the West Midlands.
Right.
So last year, on the 7th of April, I should have took up my year as the High Sheriff of the West Midlands. Now, as the High Sheriff, it's a bit like, if most people know Robin Hood and the Sheriff of Nottingham, the Sheriff is the legal representative of the Crown, the Queen. So the High Sheriff represents anything to do with the courts.
Right.
And as the High Sheriff, you have to look after any judges which come up from London, and they're normally a sir or a dame, and they're High Court judges, and they're the ones that are in red.
Oh, I see.
And your duty would be is to feed, clothe and entertain them, and provide security when they were here. Now, it's more of a ceremonial role now.
Right, I see.
Before 1884, it used to be more so that your role is financial, so you are not paid for that role, but you have to feed, clothe and provide security for the High Court judges in your area, and you would have to pay for all of those items out of your pocket.
I see. Right. Okay. Let's move on now to sort of current times. The pandemic started on the 20th, or the lockdown, I should say, started on the 23rd of March. Boris Johnson announced to everybody in Britain that, hey, as of midnight on the 23rd of March, we're going to go into what was then our first lockdown. So, without giving too much away about yourself and so on, how did that impact and affect you as a person and your business? Because I heard you say earlier you didn't go to hospital until April, so we'll come on to that. But how did locking down, yes, you are a supplier of food to various supermarkets and other business outlets, how did that affect you, your staff, etc., trying to work and prepare food in these conditions of socializing, 2 meters apart, social distancing and so on?
It affected the business slightly differently to most business. So we had to prepare for the lockdown. So my job was to sign all anybody's letters that they may have been stopped by the police or anybody working for the government to understand that why are you on the bus or why are you walking
Essential
to work.
workers.
Yes. So one of the key things is we took the steps that the government has signed all the letters. One of the issues that the staff had, they were saying, well, we can't go shopping, Mr. Lynn, while we're working, because I didn't lay any staff off throughout the pandemic. So we were on full production because, as we all know, the shelves went empty for toilet rolls and those essential items. So what I did as the owner, I went and bought toilet rolls from the wholesale for my staff, sanitising gel, so they had those items, so they could travel to work, and face mask and rubber gloves.
Right. Right. This is how a true business person operates, making sure to look after the staff along the way. So those are all the good things that you were doing there. So here you are going about your life, and then suddenly symptoms start arriving, or you start feeling unwell at work. Take us through that period and what eventually led to you seeking help. Because if I can very briefly say, men don't do doctors. Men are into denial. Men bury their head in the sand. I'm saying this to all the listeners out there, the wives and the partners and girlfriends who have men in their life. They're not the sort who will say, okay, I'm not feeling well, I'm going to go get sorted out. Take us through all that period, which led to eventually somebody suggesting you need to go and seek medical advice. That's open-ended.
Yeah, so I took sick around about the 23rd of April. March, sorry. I had a bit of a cold, and as Tony was saying, I had a bit of a cold. I didn't call the doctor. I decided to take whole Jamaican remedy, the rum and honey. Yes. Dissolved 2 paracetamols in orange juice, had a cup full of rum. Bearing in mind you don't take any other medication. And I decided to feed the cold at that stage. I wasn't aware of where I picked up the virus, so let's get that clear. So I took the first week off from about the 24th of March, and I went home. And I got to say, at the end of that week, I then was back at home. So the 23rd was on a Sunday, and then the 28th was on the Saturday. Now I'll say to all the listeners, from that the 28th, I confined myself to home, and I was perspiring at night, getting up. I then started to have the runs on the Monday. I called the doctor, and at these times you can't go and see the doctor. He asked me all the symptoms of your loss of taste. And I explained to him on the phone, I've got loss of taste, and at that stage I didn't have a test for coronavirus. I then said, shall I call the ambulance? I said, well, you're not sick enough yet. Call me back in the next couple of days. I then called 111 on the Tuesday of that week, and they said, well, you haven't shown symptoms. If your symptoms persist, then call us back. So that was the 31st now. So that was the Tuesday the 31st. I still was feeling a little bit lightheaded. I had a blood pressure machine at home, and I also had a thermometer to take my temperature, and that was all recorded down. But the thing that probably helped me was the oximeter. For most people don't understand what the oximeter is. It's where you put your finger in and measure the oxygen level in your blood.
Oh, I see.
So when you do go to the hospital and they take your blood pressure on your right arm or your left arm, you have your finger placed in the oximeter. So what then took place, obviously my lungs were filling up with water, and I was on a liquid diet of soup or or things like that. And then I took worse on the 2nd of April, whereby I had a bit of tummy problem. I had the runs, and then I just wanted to go to sleep. So the ambulance was called, and I can't remember anything after the Wednesday. All I can remember was going to the toilet, and I had an accident of the runs. The ambulance was called, and I had what you call hypoxia at that stage, where you want to go to sleep. My oxygen levels is now in the 80s. If you measure oxygen now with an oximeter, it's above 95. So I was in the 80s. So the ambulance came to my home. They took everything. They took the precautions. I can't remember anything. They took me down to the ambulance. My sister arrived at my home, and apparently I did wave to her. Right. So waved to my sister, and I can't remember none of that.
But who called the ambulance in the first place? Was it you who called?
No, I didn't call. Somebody came round to check on me, because I had to be checked twice a day. Yeah,
right.
Because I stand me on.
Right.
So somebody came round to check on me, and they kindly checked on me and said, "No, you're now at a stage that you need assistance." I then went to the hospital on the 2nd of April. That was a Thursday. And I can't remember going to the hospital, being taken at hospital, taken in. I then was asked to make 6 phone calls to my relatives. I can't remember the 6 people I called. I only looked up the numbers only last week.
Okay.
So I called my 2 sisters. I called I did call Monica. And I called 2 other people, 2 or 3 other people. And I did remember they said that they're going to put me into a coma for 5 weeks.
Wow.
So they had to put me on a vent.
It's an induced coma.
An induced coma.
Meet me on the street. Did you know Wade's in hospital? He's on a ventilator. He's in intensive care and so on. But of course, and I tried to avoid Monica Coke, who works with you, and everybody knows Monica. She was being bombarded with calls as to what's happening to Wade now and where he is. But all I was saying to people is prayers, prayers, and more prayers. If you're from a Christian upbringing or what have you, pray for Wade's recovery. He's in a bad place.
So I've got to thank everybody for praying for me, because I'm here to tell the story.
Yes.
But I'm here also to save other people's
lives
from the situation. So for me, and I've got to explain to everybody, if you'd ever get to this situation, your organs may and will fail. So I had heart failure, I had lung failure, I had kidney failure. Let's understand that.
Right.
And I had dialysis as well. They also had to turn me over every 12 hours. So some people go into hospital on their back, but I recovered better when I was turned over and put onto my stomach. So that started to get the water out of my lungs.
Right. Wow.
So it was very early days in April that we didn't know how people were going to survive. Fortunate for me, maybe because I don't drink or I don't smoke.
Right.
I was fairly fit. I'm not that overweight, and I don't suffer from diabetes.
I was going to ask you, were there any underlying health issues that you had which could have exacerbated your situation? So
No, I don't have any diabetes. I've raised blood pressure, but because I had a mild stroke some 5 years ago. And I think that's might have saved me. I took on board my vitamin D when I went to Jamaica in February for 2 weeks. So I could say that the people that prayed for me, that I haven't gone to church, I just want to say thank you for your prayers at that time. And I finally woke up around about the 15th of May.
15th of May.
Yeah.
From what was an admission from
The 2nd of
April. Wow.
So I know some people out there don't believe that this coronavirus doesn't exist, but obviously it existed, and I'm here to tell the tale.
Indeed. So let me then just ask you, I think it was a question, I should have asked it earlier, about the oximeter. Is that something that people can buy at any of the chemist store?
You can buy at the chemist. They're available now, and I bought one home for myself. A true story, I spoke to somebody in America, and they went and bought one for their family, but they bought one, somebody else, father had a problem.
Okay.
He had an oximeter, checked it, and they bought it the same day. The next day he went to hospital and saved his life.
Right, okay.
So the oximeter basically measures the oxygen in your bloodstream, and normally it measures between 95 and 98.
But there's no pricking of any finger. You just put the device onto
onto your finger,
and then it does the measurement.
And it does the measurements.
Right, okay.
So the ones you buy in the shops, maybe 2 or 3 points out.
Right.
So mine reads at home 96, 97, possibly 98. And they're available on the internet and possibly for about £10 to £15. So if I had to say, if you had to buy something, buy yourself an oximeter. And if you are feeling ill with COVID, put your finger in there and just check your oximeter. So I give those away as presents.
Yes, I like that advice, because yes, you can ring 111, which we're told to ring, and you can tell the person on the end of the phone your symptoms and so on. But if you already have something like an oximeter, or you can take your own temperature and you notice it's raised, or somebody in the family has something to take the temperature, then those are things you can feed in straight away to the person. Because I take the view, nobody knows your body better than you do. And that's very important. Wow. So up until the 5th of May, there you are in an induced coma, and the world's going by and you're none the wiser what's happening out there. Take us on from there, because as I said, the news was traveling wide and fast through the community.
So my daughter really couldn't report to anybody, because she didn't know much. So the hospital would contact her maybe once a day to say your dad is obviously still on the ventilator.
But she couldn't visit.
She couldn't visit.
Yeah, that's important to know.
And I have to tell everybody that if you are hospitalised in these times, your relatives can't visit. No. I know a few weeks ago relatives can visit when in wards the non-COVID, but they don't want people visiting and catching that COVID.
Right.
So at that stage, obviously, she had to take the world on her shoulders, and everybody was calling in to find out how I'm doing. But she couldn't report anything from day to day, because I was just laid up with tubes around me. and with the people from the NHS. But I've got to thank the nurses and the doctors that, you know, did their work on me. I've got the scars to show it, but without the service of the NHS, and you have to understand that the people in the NHS working at this time were on the front line.
Yes.
You know, and they also took what I call the hit, and the number of them.
Okay, we're going to stop here for a moment, and we're going to go to the news at 7, courtesy of our technicians here operating, Soca Master and his team.
News from home,
News from abroad.
here comes the latest
News Star
From the
News.
Sky News Centre at 7, the Countess of Wessex has shared details of Prince Philip's final moments, describing his death on Friday as very peaceful. Sophie, who's married to the Queen's son Prince Edward, also told staff at Windsor how amazing the tributes for the Duke of Edinburgh are. Edward says he was very special.
It means so much to so many people here, and it's the same for those who lived and worked at Balmoral and Sandringham, you know, for all those past and present. You know, it means a huge, huge amount to them. Very personal. They all have their own personal memories and stories, and our hearts go out to all of them as well.
A newborn baby's been found dead in a supermarket car park in the West Midlands. Police say they're trying to find its mother after the discovery in Bilston. The UK's recorded its lowest daily number of coronavirus deaths and cases since September. Tomorrow, gyms, hairdressers and outdoor pubs in England will get to reopen. Now, David Cameron has broken his silence over the row around lobbying attempts on behalf of finance company Consul, saying he should have acted differently. The former Prime Minister was in direct conversations with both the Chancellor and Health Secretary about COVID support schemes. The BAFTA Awards are taking place in London with the most diverse set of nominations ever. 16 of the 24 acting nominees are from ethnic minority groups. In sports, Leicester City boss Brendan Rodgers says he dropped 3 of his players for their 3-2 Premier League defeat at West Ham because of an alleged breach of COVID rules. He wouldn't clarify the details, but says he needed to take firm action.
Listen, it was something that was a decision I'd made. We had an internal situation last weekend, and it's not a standard that we would expect. They're all good guys, they're all good lads, but we have a standard on and off the pitch that we need to ensure we adhere.
Manchester United beat Tottenham 3-1 and Rangers are on track for an unbeaten Scottish Premiership season with a 2-1 victory over Hibs. That's the latest. I'm Fraser Knight.
Birmingham's #1 for African arts, culture and Afro edutainment. 98.7 New Style FM.
Now that we've said goodbye to 2020, let's say hello to more fun in 2021. Digicel International is giving back more this year with their Buy 20 Hello 21 promotion. When you buy £20 of top-up, you'll enter for a chance to win £21 back on a Digicel pay card. With thousands of winners last year, now is your turn to grab some of the winnings. Visit digicelinternational.com. Download the Digicel International app or visit your local store today and send the top-up for your chance to win. Terms and conditions apply. Promo ends 18th of April.
Take care and see you soon.
Greetings. Still not sure when or where to book your well-deserved holiday away? Well, the best advice would be today. Call us at Diamond Travel and treat yourself to the fantastic worldwide offers available. Special fares to the Caribbean and the USA. If it's flights only or accommodation only or a great family package holiday to the sun, then Diamond Travel is the place to call. We also offer a host of other services for weddings.
Welcome back to New Style Radio, where I, the host for the evening, Tony Kelly, is interviewing the Honorary Consul Wade Lynn from Birmingham here about his near-death experience in the Queen Elizabeth Hospital as a result of contracting COVID-19. Now, we're going to go into his next track. You'll notice a theme growing. This one is from the iconic Jimmy Cliff, Many Rivers to Cross. they come. Now, I'm here just reminding viewers and listeners, if you want to ask any questions of our special guest, the Honorable Consul Wade Lynn, the number to call in the studio here is 0121 270 2559. That's New Style Radio 98.7 FM. So, let's continue the discussion. We have about another 50 minutes or so to go, Wade, and hopefully a couple of viewers might decide to call in. Let me ask you an all-important question now. Are you actually COVID-free, or do you have what we call not COVID, where people have certain things happening to them, even though they've recovered?
I've got two issues here. When I did come out of hospital on the 3rd of July, well, I should say, when I woke up in May, I was given a So, when you go into COVID, the first 5 and it's like that's been on a ventilator. Long COVID, I still do struggle with long COVID, so if you've had it, you get the tingling in your feet, and at night time your feet would tingle, your left foot or your right foot would tingle. I had to take a driving test when I came out of hospital because I had a bleed on the brain, so I had to make sure that I was fit to drive. But you can't, if you get COVID at all, you get debilitated. You can't really do a full day's work. So you can manage 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 hours, and then have to take sensitive. So to me, I could do 2-3 hours and have to have a little lie down and have a sleep.
Well, probably it's a good thing you have quite a supportive set of staff at your place of work. Carry on. Let's face it, nobody's indispensable. But then let me take you through. Where at the Queensland Hospital, I think I know this, but let me hear you. And you're not able to walk. Where did you go for rehabilitation?
I went to the stroke rehabilitation unit at in Moseley Hall, and fortunate I was in Ward 9, and there were only 26 patients there. And when you are admitted to that particular hospital, you're isolated in a single room on your own to check if you had COVID. And you had to stay there for 5 days, and you were swabbed to check until you were COVID free before you could enter a ward with 4 other people on your ward. So each room had 4 people, and my stay there, I can remember a gentleman who had a tracheostomy, and he was like that for the whole entire period of the 5 weeks I was there, and when I left it was still there. I should go back to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital before I left. When I did wake, I was full. I was in a ward of, I think there was 6 beds because it was a 4-bed ward, but they'd fit an extra 2 in. And I have to say, I was a black person. There was a Chinese gentleman who was came from the private hospital and was in that ward, and the rest were Asians. I did ask the question while I was at the QE, how many men and how many women were in this ward. There were 20 bed ward. There were 19 men and 1 woman.
Wow.
So let's get into perspective.
Yes, that's a worrying statistic.
It will affect more men than it will affect women.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. We said earlier about you. On the whole, you were very healthy. My understanding is that a part of this whole coronavirus and COVID-19 situation is if one has a very robust immune system, they're better able to fight off the infection, the virus, what have you. Was your immune system in any way compromised? Did the doctors tell you that? Or what did they say about your immune system? Why it affected you so badly?
They didn't tell me. I read the report, and there's no, at that early stage, there was no fixed underlying item that could come back. The only thing I could say to our community, because we haven't got a lot of sun here, and as my mother would say, it's called a cold sun here, not a hot sun.
Yes.
You have to take vitamin D tablets to boost your system.
Yes.
And that's the only advice I can give is have an oximeter and take vitamin D tablets just to boost your system. But there was no underlying thing at the current time. And I think the main thing is that nowadays they don't cut your throat to put to clear your airways. They'll give you an oxygen bag to actually force the oxygen down.
Okay, right.
So you can see now that there's an oxygen bag over somebody's head, and they're breathing in a bag, and it is oxygenated from that aspect. Yes.
All right. Let me ask you then, Wade. After going through this ordeal, and this is an ordeal, and you don't mind me saying it, you were on death's door. There's no doubt in my mind from having heard before and hearing you speak now on New Style Radio. What's your perspective on life now?
My perspective on life, I have to live each day as if it's my last, and my friends and colleagues know that I'd live it up in the sense that I don't go to parties, I don't drink and all the rest, but I try and put a lot of things in my day. So I'm always thinking of the next things to do, and what I say to all my friends, I said, look, I'm happy to be alive, and don't be afraid if I say thank you, please, spend my money on you and whatever, because that's the way I am. Because tomorrow may not be around, and I always say, make hay while the sun shines. Yes, and for me, it's a second lease of life, I should say. And what I'm trying to do is save one person. If I can save one person,
you've done.
I've done my job. And I know what everybody's saying is, it's you shouldn't take the vaccine. I'm fortunate. I've had the two. Both now. The Pfizer vaccine. When I suffer from the corona, I did have the antibodies in your system. I think for the female of the community, they're the ones that I would class will have probably picked it up, but won't show any symptoms.
Right.
And somebody told me a 94-year-old grandmother, had COVID. They didn't know she had the COVID until she was tested.
Wow.
And I should say, it might not be sexist, but I think the females in our community may be asymptomatic, and the younger people are going to be asymptomatic. For the people who don't understand what asymptomatic is all about, it's the individuals that don't show any symptoms, but have the virus and will spread it to other people who may not have had the vaccine and may not be able to survive a bout of COVID. The biggest problem that we're going to have now is that the strain of the corona may increase at a higher level. So we had the Kent variant, we had the variant from South Africa, and you really shouldn't call it the South African variant because it's a country. And then you've got the Brazilian variant that's obviously here. And as our Prime Minister said, what takes place in Europe is going to wash up on our shores.
So that's well. So
the main thing you will understand, if you don't take the corona vaccine, if you do catch it, you may obviously come down far worse than I did and may not survive. Now, if in your community you take the flu jab, the corona is like the flu jab, and you will be taking booster jabs going forward for the next 3 to 5 years.
I'm glad you've mentioned the flu jab there, Wade, because I, with my type 2 diabetes, controlled strictly by diet, I'll hasten to add to the viewers and listeners, and physical activity. For the last 18 years, it runs in my family, I take the winter flu jab every year. So I'm going to be saying loud and clear to listeners, that is what you need to be doing. The same with, you've had your 2 vaccines. Myself and my wife, we've had our first. The end of April, we're due to have the second. And I would be encouraging people to do this. I'm going to come back to the vaccine in a minute, but I want to talk about the power of prayer. Lots of prayers were said for your recovery. You're a very popular man, you know, Wade. You wouldn't realize how popular you are. Are you by nature, the question I'm asking here, a religious person? And if so, have you been able to thank your Savior for the miracle of healing you?
I could say yes, I'm a religious person, because when my mother is here or I'm in Jamaica, we have to go to church together. So, and I go to a little church in Chapelton that my mum goes to. Obviously, churches haven't been opened for me to go to church, but I have to say to everybody, thank you for praying for me. And I'm quite happy to go to anybody's church to stand up to say testimony that the vaccine, you need to take the vaccine.
And this is real.
And it is real. And I know we have a lot of people in the UK who don't want to take the vaccine, but let me give you a few home truth. The people in Jamaica have the vaccine and there's 100% take up. Over here, you may think that you may not want to take the vaccine, but in Jamaica there's only one vaccine currently available, which is shipped from India, which is the Oxford Zeneca vaccine. They don't have a choice, which the Pfizer, the Johnson & Johnson, or the other one coming on stream. So let's get it clear. In Jamaica, there's 100% take-up.
Right.
My mother at 90s had hers. Right. My sister and brothers in their 60s have gone for their first vaccine. I did contact the High Commission down in London, and the UK can only ship out 50,000. Right. Bearing in mind, any vaccines made in the UK will be for the UK population first, and Europe.
Right. And I can add to that, way that my wife's sister and her husband, who live in St. Catherine, they're journeying to the National Arena, which is next to the National Stadium, today as we speak, to get their first dose of the vaccine. The importance of it cannot be underestimated. And that's the reason you're here doing this show with us. Now going to take a short break so Wade can catch his breath. And we're going to play You Can Get It If You Really Want It. It's the next track that Wade chose on his playlist. continue this journey. I'm loving your choice of music, Wade. It's bringing me back to my time spent in Jamaica as a young man, as a boy and a young man. Really uplifting music. Let's go back now to, you said earlier that you've had both doses, which is fine. But I'm going to move on to a very controversial area. In some aspects, some areas of Britain, their stats showing that black people, and when I'm talking black people, I'm talking African, Caribbean, and Asian people, are hesitant or reluctant to take the vaccine. Okay? What would you say to that? How would you try? I'm going to be devil's advocate. They talk about conspiracy theories. They talk about changing of the DNA within a person. They talk about chips inside a person. They talk about wanting to kill off the black race. You name it, they've all been said out there. I won't even repeat some of the others. They're so weird and wonderful that I see them on, they come on my WhatsApp and I just delete them straight away. What would you say to convince doubters, anti-vaxxers, people who are hesitant or reluctant? Over to you, Wade. How can we change the narrative?
I've heard some of the narratives that there are, if you have a vial, there are 6 chips in the vial. so let's get it clear. If you're the number 6 person, are you going to get no chips or 1 chip? But let's put it clear. If you all got a mobile phone, there's a chip in your mobile phone.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's put that out of your head that there's no chips in a particular vial. Okay. Also, it's not a vaccine that it's aimed at the DNA of the Afro-Caribbean people. Not so the case. So there isn't 6 come in a box and there's 1 specially for us. You know, so let's get it clear. I know that people have discussed in that they did some trials with the black people in America way back in the 60s and early 70s. But you know, I'm saying it from the sense that I've lived again, and I'm trying to tell you that take the vaccine. And the amount of people I talk and said, well, I'm not taking the vaccine because I want to see how everybody else is. My aunt, who suffers from sickle cell anemia, she spoke to a nurse and she told them take the Oxford vaccine, which is less potent. If you do take the vaccine, you will have mild effect as if you had the flu for 2 or 3 days. There will be a small proportion, 1 in 100,000, that may suffer adverse reactions, but that is the same proportion as having a car accident.
Or any other medication for that matter.
Correct. So if you look at your medication, bit of paper that comes with it says you suffer from headaches, dizziness, please don't drive. But if you put all of those papers together, they all say the same thing.
Yes.
So I've had side effects on the first vaccine, and I didn't read the paperwork. And if you're going to take the vaccine, take 2 paracetamols as soon as you have the vaccine or just before. You have to wait in the vaccination centre for 15-20 minutes to confirm that you haven't had any adverse reaction.
Okay.
The biggest problem that it's going to be about, as I said before, if you're asymptomatic and you don't know that you are COVID positive and you go and have the vaccine, what the vaccine does, it gives you a second shot of COVID, which might cause you to have more of an adverse reaction with the COVID. So you're already carrying the COVID bacteria, but then you get another shot of it, and it may cause you to go into seizures, blood clots, and possibly die.
Right.
And that's a small proportion.
Okay.
My only problem I've got, if you don't take the vaccine, is from tomorrow when the community opens up, the people around you, and you still have to wear your face mask, wear your gloves, and sanitize on a regular basis, because as Chile has now had a problem that Israel was top of the world in vaccinating all of their population, followed by Chile, followed by the UK. When Chile opened up, people had parties, and the virus now spread, and they're now in the 3rd wave. Now, Jamaica was shut down over Easter. Now, the Prime Minister didn't want to shut the Jamaican country down because Easter Friday and Easter Sunday is very high up on our calendar at the very top. But he was more concerned that he wanted to save lives and stop people from mixing and spreading it. So understand that as from tomorrow, you will run a high risk if you haven't had the vaccine of picking up the COVID and actually being hospitalised.
Right, okay. Well, here's a supplementary question for you. In the earlier days, people didn't even know, well, do I have it or don't I have it? As of last week, the government has made it available for those who so wish to do, is to twice a week get either sent to their home or go to a pharmacy or so on, the actual testing kit, which within 20 minutes can confirm whether they're COVID-free or that they have COVID. What's your take on that? Should people try and get these kits that are out there?
Those are the fast flow tests.
Yes, that's what it's called, yeah.
My take on this, anybody in my workforce, if I suspect they've got COVID, I will send them up to the nearest testing station, whether it could be just off the Dudley Road or just a walk-in pharmacy across the road from the station. So if in doubt, go for a test, no matter how small. So we've had a couple of close calls whereby engineers have turned up, he's had COVID, we've checked on our camera system, we sanitise out all the areas, and I have been for a COVID test twice since I've been out to confirm that I didn't pick up the infection of a third party.
Right, okay. So you mentioned your staff in that a bit there. Have your staff on the whole and their families followed your lead and taken the vaccine?
Well, as many people as followed my lead, so Ken, my engineering gentleman's at same doctors, has had 2 of his vaccines. And Monica, my secretary for the consulate, has taken her. And many people has taken the vaccine, but for me, I don't know anybody in my organisation that may have refused to take the vaccine.
I see.
At our factory, we air change the air every 20 minutes.
Right.
So we have an air changing for fans are running. Whenever anybody's in changing rooms, offices, production area, to make sure there's filtered fresh air coming in all the time.
Now, that's an important question you raise about filtered fresh air. You're into flying a lot, going off to the Caribbean and places like that. How is that going to impact us in aeroplanes with that air in the airplane? Will people be able to travel?
Yeah.
Nobody has ever answered that for me. I've asked it, but people say we don't know.
So
can you shed some light?
Yeah, shed some light. What happens is on a plane, the air intake on a plane, that obviously the air intake engines, they take air in from the air intake engines into the cabin, and they can mix hot and cold air that comes through the cabin. So there is a mixture system that's there that comes through, but you have to wear your face mask all the time because you're in a confined area. But the captain or the regulation will stipulate how much fresh air is coming in and what you call the air changes per hour.
Okay. At this juncture, we're going to take a short break, and while we're on the break, in terms of adverts, you'll also be hearing 3 Little Birds by Bob Marley. You notice the running
Birmingham's
theme?
#1 for African arts, culture, and Afro edutainment. 98.7 New Style FM.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners, to New Style Radio 98.7 FM. I don't know if we've scared you, but nobody has yet rung in on the studio number 0121 270 2559 to give us a take either way about what our special guest, Honorary Consul Wade Lynn, is telling us about his near-death experience and the need and the urgency for us all as black people to take the vaccine. One thing I must mention is his choice of songs. Many rivers to cross. Don't worry about a thing. You can get it if you really want it. You notice his theme running through. It's so apt and appropriate. My Boy Lollipop, Young, Gifted and Black. You can't get better than these, I'm afraid. Right. So let me move on then to ask you, Wade. Vaccination passports is high on the agenda at the moment, especially if people want to travel or if people want to go into the pub or the club or wherever. Give us your view on vaccination passports and what's your thoughts on that, please.
I think you will need a vaccination passport. I know everybody has to have what they call travel insurance, but I suspect the travel insurance company there'll be a question, or you'll be asked a question, if have you had your vaccination yet? Now, let's put it this way: you haven't had any vaccination, you go to another country, you catch COVID in that country. Imagine the situation where the hospitals are full, you're a foreign resident, you can't talk the language, you haven't got the network in which to get into the hospital. Your chances are going to fall down at the very bottom of the list. So let's understand that. So if you're intending to travel in the next 2 years, I suggest you take the vaccine. But also, you've got to take the vaccine for your loved ones around you.
Important.
The people closest to you, all right, will or may suffer if you don't take the vaccine, because when I was ill, my daughter had to start the funeral arrangements already, because I'd already written down exactly what was going to take place. So they'd already started that process already back at work. So it was scary times.
Yes,
so
indeed.
so for me, fortunate now, I've just got to tidy up the estate.
Right. Put it in good hands.
Put it in good hands. Buy your plot in the cemetery. Pay for your funerals through the co-op, because they're going to be around maybe in 20 years' time. So pay for all of that. And I always say to everybody, I know when you pass away, the people you leave behind, because you are dead and gone, let's get it clear, you leave the headache behind.
Yes.
And my thing as the Honorary Consul said, please make a will and make your wishes clear.
Yes.
How you want the money you leave behind spent.
Yes, indeed.
Because there's nothing worse than not leaving a will, and there's infighting between family members to say, I should have got this, she should have got that, I did this for mum, I did this for dad, I've been working all this time, and please make a will, no matter how old or young you are, for the little things. So if you want to give your toys away, as you know, give your toys to your best friend or whatever. So just do that for me, please.
I like that, because even the Duke of Edinburgh, who passed away recently, apparently he said loud and clear he didn't want this whole heap of well, COVID has put paid to that anyway, but he didn't want any grand sort of celebration and so on for his funeral. He wanted it to be kept very simple and dignified. All right, let's get back to this and ask you, have you had to at all change your diet and physical activities since you're recovering from your illness? Has there been any diet changes or things you put in place physical activity-wise?
Okay, let's get it clear. Once you go into a coma, you start to lose weight. So you're on a liquid lunch. So when I woke up, I'd lost 2 stones. Wow. I've since put that on and put a few extra pounds on. So my diet is, I've got to have less saturated fats and everything else.
Okay.
But also, I've had to do a lot more walking. My feet are tingling at the moment because I haven't moved them around. But one of the key things is, the more walking or exercise I do, the fitter I get.
Right, okay. Right. There's a caller on the line. We'll have him stand by or her stand by. Just finish off on the.
So
physical activity
the side effects that you will have if you do catch COVID is obviously feeling tired in the afternoon.
Right.
And you're going to have to do more exercise. At the moment, I could say my upper body is a little bit stronger, so it's all in the mind but not in the body. All right. So my legs are still a bit weaker, and the problem you're going to get if you do get COVID, if you exercise, it's like having a battery. You do too much one day, and it'll take you another 2 days to recover.
Right.
So you only can do
slowly but surely.
70% or 80%. But if you get to 90%, 100%, like I did last weekend, had a little bit of walk and was out for 2 hours after I had a walk around the block.
Right. I am very much into physical activity, as you know, Wade, and the gyms reopen tomorrow. Yip yip hooray, 12th of April. So I'll be able to start doing all the stuff that I do at the gym. But we have a caller on the line. Hello, caller.
Good afternoon, Tony. Good evening, Tony.
Hello, who is this?
I won't say my name immediately.
Oh, you won't say your name. I'm trying to. I know so many people I can't. I think I recognize the voice, but I don't want to say. Anyway, go on, caller. What do you have to ask Wade Lynn, our special guest?
I will say my name, but I said I won't say it immediately. Good evening, and I'm glad to have someone like Wade Lynn encouraging people to take the vaccine, because I have taken my first vaccine.
Good on you.
In January 31st. My question to Wade, three questions. One, why has it taken so long for me to be called to take my second vaccine, which I'm anxious to take, my second jab? And the oximeter, at what level should one be comfortable with the reading on the oximeter? And I ask this because I have had, unfortunately, to be going to the hospital. So I've gone to the hospital about 6 times in the last 4 months. And each time I was checked with the oximeter, and I checked my reading between 90 and 143. Why the gap between 90 and 143? Am I in danger at 90? And also, I was tested about 6 times since November. And on my discharge sheet every time is written asymptomatic. From what Wade said earlier, does that mean that I might have COVID without realizing?
Okay, there's a lot there. Wade will try his best now to answer.
Okay.
By the way, Tony, it's Lloyd.
Lloyd Blake. Yes, I knew it was Lloyd.
Lloyd, just a second. Now, do you mean your blood pressure machine, not an oximeter?
This is at the hospital, not home.
Okay, right. At the hospital, the blood pressure machine will give a low reading and a high reading, and it's normally 40 points between the low reading and the high reading. So an average blood pressure reading would be the low at 80, and the upper is 120.
That's correct.
Okay.
I was between 90, 120 on one stage, and on one occasion they said you need 143. Then I must have been overexcited, and it came down to 123.
No, that's fine. The oximeter measures you from 0 to 100.
Okay.
So that's totally different. Okay. And that's put on your finger and not on your cuff, your arm.
At what level of the oximeter then between 1 and 100?
Okay.
0 and 100
so if you've got readings in the 90s, you are all right. So between 94 and 99, you shouldn't worry too much about. But if it drops below 90 and goes into the 80s, that's when you should get worried about.
Okay.
So a colleague of mine who got an oximeter for somebody in America, they took all the family, wrote them all down, and the father in the family started to drop below 90, then he dropped into the 80s, and as soon as he dropped below 80, 70, they took him to the hospital, and they saved his life. And that's as simple as I can put it.
Well, as you know, Wade, I was one of those who was following you when you were there, and you remember I spoke to you at the rehabilitation center, and whoever we pray to, I'm not pro-religious myself, but give thanks that you're here. I've had to be going to the hospital since November because of hemorrhoidal bleeding around my hemorrhoids. Thankfully, nothing more serious. I've had to do a colonoscopy. At one stage, I was dropped down to 80, and I had to be given 5 units of blood.
Wow.
I'm taking it I was in not too far from where you might have been.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So just for the people outside listening in, it's the oxygen that's in your bloodstream. So as the oxygen depletes out of your bloodstream and your probably lungs start to fill up with water,
yes,
the oxygen level drops below 80, so you are getting pneumonia or such on your lungs, the water in your lungs, and that's where they turn me over onto the tummy to try and flush the water out of my lungs to survive. And you know, I've had my electrician who died in hospital, and he had the same problem. That was trying to get the oxygen into his lungs and the water off his lungs, which is pneumonia. So understand what I'm telling our community is take the vaccine because it's the lesser of two evil.
Yes, I'd agree. Totally agree.
I've joined you. I'm joining you. I've joined you, and a lot of other persons out here to say, yes, all the theorists can say what the heck they want to say, but people are dying from this thing, and I join you in going for the vaccine.
Lloyd, we're going to end here now, but I want to ask you one thing very quickly. How come if you had this thing, the first one from January, we're now into April, you're a very assertive man. You're supposed to be asking your GP or whoever, why have you not been called for dose number 2? Because
I asked my GP twice this week, Tony, and what they told me on both occasions was they are waiting for a list to come to them in which I would be placed, because as you may know, I'm close to 80 years of age, and I don't take risk like this with these things. And both occasions this week they said to me, we're waiting for a list to come between now and the end of April. And I asked, why January 31st do I have to be waiting beyond the second week in April?
It's something's not right there. We need to end this call now, Lloyd, because but you need to follow through with that, because
I'll be on Twitter from tomorrow morning following what Wade has been saying just now.
Indeed, and you have my number as well if needs be. Okay. Thanks for calling in, Lloyd. Much appreciated. I'll take one more question before we go to another line of music, and it is, what in your life would you say, Wade, sort of wanting to sort of end on a positive, is the highlight? What's been the highlight? You've been there, done it, worn the T-shirt. What's the most important thing you'd say in your life on Earth so far?
I think the highlight is being alive now. I think if I had to say to everybody, is having the foresight or the 4C that I'm alive now and I can live a few more years more. And that's what I'm saying to everybody. Take the vaccine because it will extend your life. And you know, I'm not saying it because I'm alive now. I'm saying it because I want to help other people, and I don't want them to suffer, because I've seen 2 of my closest friends enter hospital and catch the COVID and have since passed away. So it is something that's out there, and it will be in our society for the next few years.
Yes, it's not going anywhere.
And it's not going anywhere. So if you decide to stay indoors for the next 2 years and don't come out, you stand a good chance of not catching it. But if you do come out, you may stand it, and you may will pick it up.
Right. That's a positive note to end on. We're coming to the end of this 2-hour show. Time has flown. Wade, I'm going to thank you very much for coming in to New Style Radio 98.7 FM and sharing your story with us. It is truly a remarkable story. You mentioned earlier to me, if you convince one person to change their mind and save one person's life, you think you'd have done your job. I'm hoping the listeners will take on board what you have been saying. It was a pleasure speaking to you. I've known you for quite a while now, and your team down at your workplace, Monica Coke in particular. I have to big her up. Continue on the road to recovery. Stay blessed, walk good, And we're going to end with a final track you chose. And this is the land of my birth. Gosh, this brings me back. Eric Donaldson, Mr. Festival himself from Jamaica. This is the land of my birth.